wow, this is an opportunity where I could truly serve people. And to me, I look at this as a ministry. So I get to meet people and I get to minister to them. Even if they don't become a client or they don't become a business partner, I've made a friend, whether it's in their finances to make a change, or whether it's just the friendship, or if I could inspire them in some way to change something about their life to become better. For me, it's amazing.
Well, hello once again, and welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 106, and as you can see, we're in a different location today. We're actually in the backyard of my brother and sister-in-law's. You like the background there, the surfboards, everything? We almost feel like we're in Hawaii, but not quite. And this is going to be a great time. I have a great guest today, and she is a businesswoman. She's also a person of faith. Really excited to be able to talk to her and get to know her and have that shared with you. So Abi Flores, thank you so much for making the trip over here.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you. Oh, thank you. So we're going to get right into it. Let's kind of find out a little bit about you. So maybe background, growing up, family, all of that, and then maybe even how you came to faith, because I know that's important to you.
Okay, well, I was born in the Philippines, moved here to the United States when I was 6.
Okay.
So I grew up in the Valley, Woodland Hills, Canoga Park area, actually Simi Valley prior to that. But yeah, I came to faith at about 12 years old, got invited to a Baptist church, and started attending about 11, 12 years old.
Okay. So that was just an invitation from a friend or like to an event?
Yeah, actually my sister dated a guy, and he got saved, and he actually had visited us and invited us to come to church.
That's how it usually works, right?
Yeah.
An invitation.
Yeah, he was part of the bus ministry, and I remember him coming every Sunday with that big yellow bus, just inviting us to church.
I used to drive one of those, and it's a very similar thing. So those bus ministries, they're not as prevalent today as they were, but they were very effective, weren't they?
They were very effective. I thank God, looking back, that he did that.
Yeah.
At the time it was annoying, but now I look back and I'm like just so grateful he did that.
Those bus ministers, the one thing you knew is they were always going to show up, right? So
right.
if you weren't, they'd be ready to drag you out of the house and whatever you were wearing if you weren't prepared for it.
Exactly.
So. Awesome. So we connected actually because basically over social media. One thing that I noticed, I mean, you put a lot out there as far as business and everything else is concerned, but I noticed a lot of faith-based type of post. And I like that. That's why we call this Audacious Faith, because the person is not afraid to kind of throw out there what they believe, and whether some people like it, some people don't, that's fine. But we want to take that bold stand. So why is it important to you, I guess, to keep that as a central part that you throw out there in your life?
Why is it important?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm a mom. So for me, it just, our faith is like our foundation. It's on a rock, right? So through adversity and just through things we go through in life, for me, it's always just kept me very, it's just kept me on the right path. Yeah. And it's kept me really just strong. So for me, it's just important because, God is everything. Mm-hmm. He's allowed me to overcome a lot of things in my life. So I put him first, and obviously in business especially, but just being a mom, I think it's so important, especially nowadays, to have faith in our kids, raising them, right, and also for ourselves to kind of keep us on the right path.
Exactly. So you mentioned that as far as that stability, even going through difficult things, and yes, we're going to have some background noise at times. We're near an airport, but that's okay. Let's kind of relate it this way then, because when those adverse times come, there tends to be emotions that come along with it. And obviously people go through things and those emotions are tough. So how does faith over feelings, I guess you could say, keep things that there's just certain truths that you know are what they are despite how you might be feeling at the time. Does that come into play? And even as you deal with your kids?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
How does faith become solid? There's certain things that are true, even though emotionally we may be struggling with some things that we're going through. So is that strong foundation just keep you on the right path despite going through stuff?
Yeah, because I could think of, as you asked me that, I think of Proverbs, I think 3, verses 4 through 6, where you trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge him. So that's one of those verses where you're just like, okay, don't trust on how you feel. Don't trust on, trust on in the Bible and the Word of God, because that's what always stands true, regardless of how we feel. So for me, I think of that verse and I'm just like, okay, regardless of what I'm feeling, regardless of what I think, always just trust God, because he's always going to... We lead ourselves into the wrong path, but God will never do that. So I think if you just trust in him, then, you won't have any regrets.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me go along with what you're saying on that. There's something that I went through in my life that maybe you've noticed as well. When things are really crazy, one realization that came to me at one point was, okay, I don't understand any of this.
Yeah.
But one thing that I do know is that God cannot possibly be wrong.
Right.
So even though I don't get it and what he's doing, that helps us to move forward, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of things as we're going through it, we're not understanding why.
Right.
Right? And it's not until later we look back and we're like, oh, that didn't happen to me. It actually happened for me.
Yes.
Right? And that's happened so many times in my life where I'm just like, God is just so good.
Yeah.
And it's like he's taken me through so much. And just looking back, I'm just so grateful for trusting in God instead of trusting in myself going through that.
Yeah.
So.
Because we're not as reliable as we think we are, right?
Absolutely not. No, not at all.
Sure, definitely. Now, social media, you do a lot on social media, especially Facebook. I do as well. I know I get weird messages sometimes.
Do you really?
I do. I get strange messages.
I hear you're coaching for the Lakers now?
That, they haven't quite finalized the contract, but I'm holding out for a better deal.
A better deal, I
yeah.
would too.
They've been after me for a long time, so much so, and it's such a secret that nobody else knows except for you, me, and a few other people on Facebook. But But we get interesting messages, and some of them are very beneficial. I think that's why we're on Facebook. Right. But at the same time, we get some crazy ones too. I'm sure you get some of those, right? I mean, some stuff that's like,
Yeah, sometimes.
So how does the faith lens, maybe as a filter, help you in, okay, there's certain places I'm just not going to go, there's certain subjects I'm just not going to respond to, and or what about when people are disagreeable even? I mean, a lot of times we have a tendency to, oh, well, you're going to shut me down, I'm going to shut you down, and I'm going to, tell you. So how does faith play into that as far as how you deal with not only the easy people, but the difficult people? Yeah,
I think a lot of the characters that we want to possess are godlike traits. So when you want to maybe get angry at somebody or you want to say something nasty, you just kind of think about okay, what would God do? Would God have compassion on this person? Or,
sure.
So I try to just have compassion on people and just try to be kind, and also come from a place where it's not the fleshly desires, but it's okay, the spirit, right? So let the spirit guide you in times of wanting to maybe get out of character.
Exactly. It happens. Now, I know in business too, you're going to have great clients, great people that you sit with, and then there's difficult people. Yeah. I mean, I can remember having appointments, because we're in the same business. I can remember having appointments where literally some young, look like some young punk kid sitting across from me, questioning every intention that I had. Yeah. Totally maligning my character, saying you're just a crook, you're this or you're that. And wow, I mean, that's tough. Yeah. I don't know if you've had any quite like that, but to not respond in a, I guess, human fleshly way, but more of a spiritual way. Right. And I like what you said, having compassion even for people that maybe aren't showing much towards you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at us. You know, we're sinners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before we got saved, it's like, how did God look at us? Like, oh my gosh. So again, it's seeing people through the eyes of God, and again, having that compassion, because we're not perfect, right? Like, how many times do we fail God? How many times do we imagine if God didn't have compassion on us? Right?
And that would happen every day.
Exactly.
Right? We definitely have it. I failed already today. I'm assuming that you have probably
every
as well.
day, I think, just sitting in traffic.
Absolutely. That probably did it. You came a long way to get here.
Definitely. Teaches us patience.
Right. And of course, patience, Bible says, comes through trials and tribulations. So that's LA traffic right there.
Exactly. That will definitely test your faith.
Definitely. Now, let's go to a mutual person that we like to follow. Ed Milet, for instance, is somebody that I know you post some things from him, and I already picked up something that you said already. It didn't happen to us, but for us. Mm-hmm. That obviously is completely biblical, but it's something that he also teaches quite a bit.
Yeah.
To me, he's probably one of the most inspirational speakers that I know of, that I've ever heard. What draws you to his videos, teachings, interviews, things like that?
Yeah, I think for me it is just the mindset. Mm-hmm. Not only is he a born again Christian, and because that's who I like to take my advice from, is men of faith, because I know that's where they get their wisdom from. So I like to follow people who get their source of wisdom from the Word of God, right? And so that's number one. That's why I follow Ed Milet. But secondly, because he's just a great life coach in general. There's times where I wanted to quit the business, and his video comes up, and he speaks to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's right. Just, don't stay on the ground when you get knocked out. Just jump back up and get back up, right? Because we're going to face a lot of challenges and adversity in the business too. And so there's just many times in my career where I wanted to give up, and I see his video, and he's like, no, don't give up, get back up. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I needed that message today. Yeah. And so...
And going along with that, I know part of his story that I'm sure you're familiar with is, starting off in business, nobody knows. He's got a fake fancy car, basically. He's got a...
Velcro?
Yeah, Velcro car to make it look like a Mercedes. He's got... they're taking showers outside because their water's turned off. Their things are shut down. No team, no group, nothing. Yeah. But isn't that encouraging? Because here's somebody who's now very successful. That making of a champion was inside even when it was back then. Right. But I don't know. Answer this. Does anyone truly accomplish great things without going through tough things first? It's very rare, isn't it?
Very rare. Very rare. Because diamonds are made under pressure. Right. So how can you be, Yeah, that's a great example of what I could say.
I think he would be much harder to relate to if it was just all smooth sailing from the very beginning.
Exactly, because how are you able to lead people, encourage people, if you haven't gone through things yourself? Right. Right, so...
Nice playing. Sounds closer than it is.
Yeah. So I think he talked about it in his book, The Power of One More. He talked about how you're the most qualified person to help another person if you've been through that yourself.
I love that quote.
I love that too. Yeah. Because oftentimes we look at ourselves and we're like, gosh, I failed at this. All of these things I've done, but you're actually the most qualified. If you've failed at certain things, you can help the next person when they fail through certain things. Right. So again, like you said, you're more relatable, you're more real, because people know like you've been through things. So,
and it's definitely right. I think his exact words are, "You're the most qualified to help the person you used to be."
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And what I love about that, and going back to what you referenced before about it didn't happen to you, but it happened for you, is that as we think of, for instance, Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have."
I love that verse.
Yeah, great verse. And so when God allowed these things to happen to us, he could have prevented them, But when he allowed these things to happen to us, it was for a purpose, to now be that person to have an impact on somebody else, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So great. So maybe that's why in James it tells us we can consider it joy when we go through those difficult times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's when God is able to really mold you.
Yeah.
It's through those tough times.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's tie this over. You like to work out as well, right? Do
I try
gym
to.
Stuff. Okay. We all, believe it or not, I try to as well. It may not
You look
show.
great, by the way.
Well, thank
all
you.
those pictures you post in your suits and stuff.
Yeah, I wish those were actually real, but yeah. That's the great thing about AI. I love AI because it can give you... The problem is, like I tell people, is then I end up looking in the mirror and reality hits. So
it's humbling.
It is humbling, but it's something to shoot for, right?
Absolutely.
So here's the thing. So with tying into what we were just saying, and let's take working out, for instance. So do you like using weights? Do you more aerobic? What do you like to do?
I love yoga. Yoga is very great for the mind.
Okay. Now, doesn't yoga put you in positions that I don't think God ever intended?
Well, there's beginners.
Okay.
There's intermediate, and there's advanced.
Right. Because my level is like just getting off the couch. So, you know.
I started yoga, number one, but I like to use just dumbbells.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a super like... in the
you're
gym.
Not pressing the
and
100-pound dumbbells yet.
Not really big on equipment, but
Gotcha.
I'll use dumbbells and
okay.
stuff like
So
that.
whatever you're doing, whether it's the yoga exercises, which can get pretty intense.
Yeah.
There's that point where you have to push yourself a little bit, right? You have to kind of go a little further than before. Otherwise, you don't really progress, right? So if there's no pain, there actually is very little to no gain, right?
Right.
So kind of like tying that over, do you think God kind of does that in life? Is that like, just like physically we have to break down of muscles, spiritually we have, some things that are just broken down in order for us to then be built up stronger?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Happens a lot. Well, let me move on here and let's talk about helping people with their finances. I know that's something you like to do. Congratulations, by the way. You recently became a senior marketing director with the company that we're in. And that's a journey, helping people with their finances. And let's talk about that. How many people do you get to meet? And this is what I love about it. Just have a positive influence, even if they don't become a client.
Right.
Everyone you meet, some will be clients, some will not. Mm-hmm. But isn't every meeting definitely a blessing in some way, just to be able to meet people and share with people?
Yeah, well, I look at this as a ministry.
Yes, okay.
When I got saved when I was 16, I actually surrendered my life in full-time service. Where I wanted to serve God. I just didn't know, at 16, I didn't know how I was going to do that. So many years later, when I ran into our opportunity, I said, wow, this is an opportunity where I could truly serve people. Yeah. And to me, I look at this as a ministry. So I get to meet people and I get to minister to them. Just, I feel like you said, even if they don't become a client or they don't become a business partner, I've made a friend.
Right.
I've inspired them in one way or another, whether it's in their finances to make a change, or whether it's just the friendship, or if I could inspire them in some way to change something about their life to become better. For me, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great thing, and I think that's what there's a misconception, and some people do it differently, but I know you're coming from the right place, where we're not a hard sell type of thing. I mean, we really just want to educate people, help people, enhance their life in some way, and sometimes they can do something now and sometimes they can't.
Right.
But often the timing is just maybe it's later. It doesn't necessarily mean it's never.
Exactly.
But yeah, every person we get to meet is some type of divine appointment in
Absolutely.
a way. Yeah. And they sometimes lead us to other people as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
it's a blessing.
So you've been doing it for a course of how long?
Well, I've been in financial services for almost 25 years, but I've been licensed since 2005.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So a little while.
So I've been in the industry for a long time.
Started when she was 5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love the ministry. I love that we get to, I'm in, like, we're in the people business. So I love it. I feel like God can use you in so many different ways.
The people business. So that is definitely true. And I love what you said about doing it as a ministry. I was asked this once by a pastor who was thinking of getting in, and that's my, where I'm at as well. And so he said, I have to ask you a question. He said, how do you balance it as being a pastor and then doing the business? And I looked at him and said exactly what you just said. I said, I don't see it as any different. Exactly. It's just a ministry here. I also coach high school girls basketball. Everywhere it is, it's a ministry. It's all the same.
I knew you were a coach.
Yeah.
You were going to make a great Lakers coach.
Yes, exactly. So
cannot wait.
I know. So
go Lakers.
You have Jeannie's number, right?
Sorry, I do.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's totally good. Totally good. So let's go to the next question here. So when it comes to that interaction with people that we're talking about, trust and likability.
Yes.
Is huge.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that like 80% of it?
It is. Yeah, people do business with who they like and they trust.
Yeah.
And again, I look again as this as a ministry because you're getting to know people. It's not about me, it's about them.
Right.
What do they want? What do they like? What are their goals? What are their dreams? What do they...
Yeah,
so,
and from sincerity, obviously, wanting to know, listening to people. People want to be seen. They want to be heard.
Exactly.
They want to be valued.
Exactly.
So when we do that, that's an extension of showing God's love towards them as well, because that's how God sees us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when that's the great opportunity we have. I think what I love about it is that before I did business, I would meet like 1/50th of the amount of people that I meet now. So it wasn't that I didn't care about people. It's just that within just the walls of the church, there's only so many people that you come in contact with. And a lot of people won't walk inside the walls of the church. You have to meet them somewhere else.
Right.
So for people of faith, I think it's important, as you've seen, whether it's in financial services or any other workplace or at a gym or wherever we are, to get outside those walls and just contact and touch as many people as possible.
Yep.
Right? Now I want you to respond to this statement. Not everybody agrees with it, but I've heard it from several people who do business. And I think it ties into what we do. And that is this. People don't like to be sold, but they do want to buy. So how does that tie in when you're sitting with someone? They don't want a timeshare presentation. They don't want anything like that.
Yeah.
And they may even come into it going, I'm not doing anything.
Right.
I just, I'll hear you out, but I'm not doing anything. How do you see that change? Because you want something for them. You're not just trying to sell them.
Yeah.
Is there like have you noticed at times where the wall starts to come down and then
it happens all the time?
Yeah.
And I think it's because, again, we come from a place of service and really educating the clients first.
Yeah.
And once they realize what they don't know, and you're able to really give them that gift of educating them,
right,
is when they start to, you kind of see the walls, they kind of just start opening up. So I think when people are a little bit disturbed as far as where they are financially, it's an emotional thing for them, and they want help, right? So we help people that want to be helped, and 9 times out of 10, a lot of them do put that guard down, and want to be helped.
Over the course of time, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you've learned this over your career. I know I had to learn it the hard way, where people were doing things with their accounts and things that they had set up, and they thought that it was really good. And they didn't maybe have all the information. And early on, I wanted to be, kind of like Mr. Know-It-All. And so I would come along and say, well, this is what you have, but this is why it's no good, and this is no good, and this is no good, and what we have here is so much better. People don't really like that, do they?
They don't like being told.
Exactly. So did you maybe change over time? I know I had to make things like, well, it's great that you've been doing this, and you're ahead of where a lot of people are at. Let me show you some other options as well. Did you kind of have to change the way you approach people?
Yeah, it's definitely asking the right questions, right? Like, how much of your retirement are you comfortable losing in the market?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
None. Right?
Yeah. And often they don't know that what they have currently they will lose in the market unless they've experienced it already.
Correct.
Yeah. So what about now? Let's say we're in very strange market times right now. Here we are almost up towards record highs, although the last couple days have been bad. And I was just having this conversation with someone because people get very comfortable when things are up.
Yeah.
As far as their retirement accounts, but you have to think, if we're near record highs, how much higher would it actually go?
Yeah.
Where's the greater chance, higher or lower? And it could be a fairly dramatic loss for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, the last 20 years or so, every 3 to 5 years, the market takes a dip. So.
And it's been really... This has been a long cycle where it hasn't really got pounded. It's totally overdue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So economists do predict that in 2024 it's gonna possibly take
very possibly could. Now I know I've been saying that for a few years, but But the problem is, and I think this is where people have to be at least made aware, is you can keep saying it may not, but once it does, if you haven't already got yourself in a secure place, now it's a little late.
Correct. And that's why I ask, how much of your retirement are you comfortable with losing in the market?
Right.
And people say, well, none of it. Well,
yeah, especially if they're getting up 50, 60 years old or more.
Exactly,
yeah. You don't have all that time to make it back up. So.
Correct.
Right. Well, let's do this. Let me ask you this. What are some goals for you? I know you just hit Senior Marketing Director.
Yeah.
You have a growing business. If people don't know what that exactly entails, it's not just about a higher position. It's also about being more of a mentor to more people in business and helping them to be successful as well. So are there ways that you like to develop other leaders and inspire them?
Are there ways?
Yeah, are there certain things you like to do? Is it like personal touch time? Is it one-on-one training, more group training? How do you, the people that you're helping and training, how do you help them to feel valued and move them along?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a lot of communication, right? Getting to know them, getting to know their family, getting to know what their goals and dreams are.
Yeah.
Because I think you've heard this saying, if you help enough people get to where they want to be, ultimately you'll get to where you want to be.
True.
And so literally, I know it might sound cliche, but I am really now just focused more than ever to promote senior brokers in my organization. So I'm looking within the next, 3 months to promote 3 direct to me, so that I can hit executive level, and then by the end of 6 months to a year, hit the CEO within the organization. So it's just never been more easier. The timing is great right now.
This is just a suspicion on my case, but I think you're going to get there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. High five.
Yeah, absolutely.
High five for that.
All right. Hey, so let's kind of tie it in with this. Let's say that you went back in time.
Okay.
All right, we're going to get in time machine right now.
All right.
And you go back in time and you meet yourself at 20 years of age. Okay? What do you see? Are you thinking, what was I thinking? And what would your 20-year-old self think meeting you?
Oh my gosh. Where do I start? So the first question was me looking back at myself at 20 years old.
Right. So what's the difference? What are you noticing at 20 that you're like just shaking your head like, wow, you knew nothing, back then?
Yeah. Well, I think I put up with a lot of BS in my 20s, right? Definitely a lot more patient with tolerating BS. So for me, but I've always been just very ambitious, very loving. But I think if I were to look back 20 years ago, I would say, cut out the BS, don't tolerate it. And yeah.
So that would be some advice that you would give. And your 20-year-old, when your 20-year-old self met you now,
yeah,
was this the direction that you were thinking you'd want to go at 20? Or?
Definitely better.
Okay, better. That's
yeah,
good.
I actually became a mom at 20 years old.
Okay.
So that was a very, just a very important year for me.
Yeah.
A lot of growing pains, becoming a mom at 20. Yeah. Obviously, I have a 23-year-old now.
Okay.
And I'm just looking back, like, how was I a mom at 20? Like, I was still a kid myself, I feel like.
Yeah, although,
back,
I think kids were different back.
That's true, though, right?
We seem to have, I don't know, maybe we just look at ourselves more favorably back in that time. But yeah, you see some of the, I mean, I'm not speaking about your 23-year-old because I don't know, but
it was different, though. Times were so different back then. I mean, I had my own place. I mean, I've been very independent, really, since I was 16. But, I mean, I look at my 23-year-old now, and I'm like, I was doing way more than you at 16. Like, what are you...
Yeah, what has actually happened? I haven't been able to figure out. Is it these phones? I'm not sure what it is, but there seems to be less of a tolerance for taking on hard things.
Right, definitely. But I mean, looking back when I was 20, I would still say I could say I was really still very proud of what I achieved, even at 20 years old.
Yeah, so you were off to a good start.
I was off to a good start. Yeah.
So that foundation now. So now looking forward, you would say it's even better. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now let's tie it in. Let's look future now. So, what are some, through the lens of faith, however you want to frame it, what are some possible goals? You already mentioned a few. Okay. But that you're thinking, that God's laid in your heart, this is where I want to go. This is what I'm hoping to see. This is what I'm hoping to accomplish.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Like I mentioned, when I was 16, I surrendered my life to God, right? And back then, I didn't really know what that meant. But now that being in this business and being where I am at in life right now, as I mentioned to you, I do want to be CEO within the next 12 months in this organization. And what that really means is going back to when I was 16. Is really my goal and my dream that God put in my heart 20 plus years ago is to help build churches, financially support churches where they can build bus ministry. Okay. Because I was a product of the bus ministry. Yeah. So how awesome is that to be able to help fund churches, to have buses running like it did back then, and pick up kids, especially the youth. So I have a special place in my heart to really go out there and reach the youth, teenagers and stuff like that through the ministry. And my dream really is to travel and help build churches. I want to see more people get saved.
Yeah, and that is what I like about that is, because a lot of people say, business people, driven people, entrepreneur people, it's just about, they just want all this money and they just want to be able to buy anything they want and they want to be able to vacation half the year and things like that. Yeah. But I love what you're saying, because it's not like that for a lot of people. A lot of people have goals that you want to accomplish, that being successful in business will enable you to be able to help people in more ways that you couldn't do if you weren't, right?
Absolutely. If you put money in the hands of good people, we could do more good with it. Right. Right. And so we need more people like us to be successful so we could do more good things.
Right. So money is not the root of all evil, right?
It is not.
It's just that if all we care about is the money itself, that's when we have a problem. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's some of my goals and dreams, and where I see what I see myself doing in the next 10, 20 years is just being able to give and build.
So there are certain places you talked about building, helping, growing churches. Are there certain areas that you have in your mind, in your heart?
Well, I'd love to go back home to the Philippines and help over there. Obviously, it's areas that need some financial assistance, but even just here locally or wherever God sends me, or
Just good. Well, let me get to my last question. This has been great, by the way.
Thank you.
And it's kind of flown by.
It has.
But here's my question, and it's kind of open-ended. So it's however God just kind of leads you to answer it. We don't know who, when, how this is going to be viewed. I mean, it's going to be out there, and some may be seeing it right away. Others, it may be a year or two down the line.
Yeah.
And so some of the goals that you've already talked about may already be accomplished by then. But there's going to be a person out there that maybe is still searching. You have faith in your life, I do. But maybe they're curious about it, but they're still just kind of checking it out. They're searching. There's a void that's there. There's an emptiness that's there. They can't seem to fill it no matter what they try. So I don't know, knowing what you know in life, the difference that God has made in life for you, maybe you just want to tell them what God is laying in your heart to tell them as far as how to find an answer to that void.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, even before I found my faith, and I didn't even know if there was a God, I actually prayed this prayer and I said, God, I don't know if you're real, but if you are, I hope you hear my prayer, right? And God has answered my prayers since then. So my advice would be just, test God, pray about it. Talk to God about it. And you know what? God works in mysterious ways. And so, just pray and talk to him. And I can just, from a person of faith and from my own experience, I know without a shadow of doubt that God will hear your prayer and he will answer your prayers. So that's just my short answer. But I prayed that prayer, Pastor, when I was 16 years old. When my parents were going through a divorce after 40 years. And I prayed in my living room and I said, if there is a God, please send me a pastor, send us a church. And I kid you not, Pastor, within like a week later, a pastor actually knocked on our door and invited us to church. Yeah. And that right there, I said, oh my gosh, God heard my prayer that day, when I didn't even know if there was a God or not. So ever since then, that's when I knew, oh my God, God is real. And he literally...
and he answers.
He answers prayers, So
it ties right in, right? The Bible says, ask and it will be given, seek and you will find.
Yeah.
Taking that first step, I love the way you put that.
Thank you.
Just take that step. You may not know the answers to the questions that you're asking, but God has a way of showing you. You just need to take one step towards him and he'll run your direction. So, Abby, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to continuing to follow the success that God's going to give you. How can a person get in touch with you? Let's say that they like something they've heard, they have a question, or maybe they even want to join you in business, or they want to find out more about it. Is there a good way to contact you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Facebook, Abi Flores, and I still have to put together my Instagram, Pastor, but for now it would be...
I'm slow on that too.
Me too. So for now it would be my Facebook, Abi Flores.
And Abby's very good at answering messages. I know she answered mine, so throw it out there and she'll be very happy to get back to you. And I'm sure that you will definitely get some great answers and some feedback from her. So again, if you have not subscribed to this podcast yet, maybe you're watching for the first time, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a subscribe button. If you're on another platform, then there's also a way to follow us. Make sure that you do that. Share this podcast with as many people as you think might benefit from it. And also, we have 105 other episodes that you can also view. So thank you so much. And we look forward to sharing more great content with you in the future. This has been the Audacious Faith Podcast. God bless you all.